Thank you for joining us on Sunday Interview. I'm your host, Grevazio Zulu. Now, the education sector in Zambia has in the last decade recorded phenomenal growth. But the sector is one of the areas that has continued to face challenges in attaining quality in the delivery of training and education. For now, it seems a good number of private and public institutions of higher learning are failing to meet expectations of producing quality graduates and contributing to national development. What with reports of examination leakage, inadequate lecturers, and disturbances in universities and colleges. Higher Education Authority Director General, Professor Stephen Simukanga, is on the program to discuss these pertinent issues. Professor, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Grevazio.
It's nice to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. We last met 2 years ago.
2 years ago, 2016. And I know you were here, but I want you, for the sake of the viewer, to look back and go back again to tell us the motivation for the establishment of the Higher Education Authority.
Thank you, Grevazio. But I'll give a background first in terms of historical background, and then come to why the Higher Education Authority was established. Grevazio, you recall that the University of Zambia was established in 1965 through an act of parliament. Then in 1987, it was repealed, then replaced by 2 acts. One created the Copperbelt University, that was University Act number 19, and then number 20 created the University of Zambia. So split into 2 acts. 1992, Grevazio, I think at that time, we saw a large number of secondary school graduates, because not only Zambia, even in Africa, I think we've been investing more in primary and secondary school for over 4 decades. Then you create a pyramid. You have more secondary school graduates, but less places at tertiary level. So government saw it fit to also bring in private sector to participate in the higher education landscape, because the universities that were available now, at that time, 2, could not cope with the increasing numbers. So in 1992, we saw private participation. At that time, we didn't have an institution to monitor quality in these institutions. So we saw so many institutions coming on board. In 2013, the government realized that no, we needed an institution to regulate, because the qualifications that were coming out of these institutions, the public had no confidence in them, including government, because there was no one checking on these private institutions. So in 2013, then we had the act was repealed, and then we came up with the Higher Education Act of 2013, and that saw the establishment of the Higher Education Authority.
What are your functions?
Functions, Grevazio, we regulate, higher education. We register private higher education institutions. The minister creates public institutions. But when it comes to accrediting learning programs, we accredit learning programs in both private and public. We also do auditing, because once you register, we also want to come and see whether you are following what you said you'll be doing. So we come to audit, we go through, because sometimes you may say, Grevazio will be teaching this course, is qualified. When we come back, we find that you have, someone else is doing it.
Different lecturer.
So those are the audits that we do, regular audits. Yeah. So effectively, Grevazio, we started operating in 2015. And the first Director General was recruited in 2016. And since then, there are certain things that we have done, and which I'll elaborate
as the program goes on.
That's right, yeah.
When you look at higher education, what are we talking about? Is it universities? Does it include colleges? What kind of colleges?
Yeah.
Are there certain colleges that exist outside your ambit?
That's right. The Act talks about universities and colleges that are not sitting in TVET or education, which are education colleges, which are sitting under teaching council. Also, colleges that are established by other acts of parliament. And examples are NIPA, for example. It's created by its own act of parliament. ZICAS, ZIALE is an, they have got their own act. So those ones we don't deal with, but because they are regulated by other acts.
Do you think moving forward these acts should be put together so that the entire education system is regulated by one independent autonomous body?
Grevazio, that would be the ideal thing to do, because you see, you start having having different criteria for accreditation. So it's better to have one institution doing all the accreditation aspects of our learning program. I think it's something that we're discussing, and maybe perhaps we're looking at the amendment of the act, and this might come. Because what happened was, because of that gap, there was no institution that was regulating. We saw professional bodies doing their own accreditation. Engineering Institution of Zambia, Health Professionals Council, GNC, all these ZICAs, the human resource, whatever. When you look at their acts, they have a component that talks about accreditation of learning programs, because there was a gap. Now we have this institution. I think they should concentrate on the professional side of things, the practice.
So what we're still seeing is a bit of anarchy in the sectors.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of confusion, because if you have so many institutions accrediting, you go to accredit, you close an institution because of accreditation, and HEA goes there, so it's really making our work difficult. And really, the way to go is to have one institution doing the accreditation of learning programs in higher education institutions. That way you standardize the criteria, it's the same yardstick you are using. That way we shall assure quality
education
yeah.
and graduates. Now, I want to talk about your achievements. You've been in existence for 4 years now, meaning that by now, you effectively started performing in 2015. Maybe let's say 3 years.
That's
existence
right,
in 3 years. By now, we should have been seeing a semblance of normalcy or decency in the universities and colleges, but it doesn't seem to be the case. We still have colleges with inadequate lecturers, inadequate training facilities, ill-trained lecturers, incredible exemptions that probably are not believable when you see them. And where is the challenge?
Yeah, Grevazio, when we started in 2015, we found 35 universities that were registered under the old act. I think they were under the Ministry of Education. So the first thing we did was we came up with criteria for registration, benchmarked with Commonwealth countries. We used Australia, South Africa, and Bangladesh, basically similar criteria they use. We also came up with criteria for accrediting learning programs. So we spent the whole of 2015 and part of 2016 to do that. In 2016, that's when we started re-registering the ones that were existing, so that we see that they meet certain criteria. And so that was the backlog. And then we started now doing the new ones. In terms of programs, Grevazio, we have estimated about more than 3,000 programs that are being run in these institutions. And we have received about 750 programs. We have accredited about 190 programs. That we have finished the accreditation of that. Now, we have a huge backlog. And it's not something that we can do in 1 year. But we have started doing this. Fortunately, this year we received an increase in the budget to recruit more staff. We just recruited about 14 staff members. Among them, we have inspectors. And now these inspectors, they can come to your university anytime without prior notice. So want to escalate the inspection process. As you see, sometimes you are driving around, you see a poster. All of a sudden, there's Grevazio University somewhere in the Olympia Park. Who are these guys? They have gone to PACRA. PACRA has given them the name. But it's a regulated industry. Instead of coming to us first, they already start advertising. So those are things that's right. So those are things that we are on course, Grevazio.
But when we look at the programs, and you say you're on course, it doesn't look like that. 3,000 programs being offered, 750 submitted for accreditation, only 150 accredited.
Yeah, I will explain.
That's a small number.
We use experts to accredit. If it's economics, we bring in economics experts. They look at the program, you know, they look at the aims and objectives. No, there is a criteria for that. They'll go and verify on site whether the staff they are saying are there, are indeed there. They also look at the contracts, the curriculum, everything. Now, that takes time. And I think for us, we think we have made progress, because this year we targeted 500. So far we have done 190. We have 2.5 months to go. The other thing you need to also realize, Grevazio, is that these experts don't work for us. They work for different institutions. Sometimes we bring experts from outside Zambia. We used University of Cape Town recently for some engineering programs at University of Zambia. Now we have no control over what they do. They will tell you, okay, now I'm going for a conference in the US. You wait until they come to give you a report. So that also has an effect on the pace at which we are moving. But as I said, the foundation has been laid, and we are moving. And soon the landscape will be normalized as we go forward. Because some of the programs we have seen already are being done by unqualified people. And those are the programs, in fact, next week we shall be discussing those, and those are the programs we shall close. We'll tell the institutions to close those programs. So those are things that we're doing.
And there are some programs that you've outrightly rejected.
Yes.
They've come to you.
We do reject, and we inform the institutions why they are rejected. We give them time to rectify. But those who don't rectify on time, those are the programs that we shall be closing soon.
Now, you seem to take a softer approach to illegality, if I may say. We've seen other institutions taking a very hard-line approach. Health Professional Council of Zambia goes into these universities, withdraws programs, and closes some of these institutions. You seem to always want to sit down with the colleges and allow an illegality to probably take some time. We don't hear you moving in. Is that deliberate? Is that your way of approaching issues?
Okay. I think to answer that question, Grevazio, for the past roughly 3 years, there have been 3 technical people at the Higher Education Authority, including myself. So you can imagine the challenge that's there. It's only this month that we recruited a manager and some seniors. We recruited about 13 people. So in terms of moving, I'm saying going forward, the pace will be increased. In terms of soft approach, you see, accreditation world over, if you read the literature on accreditation, is about continuous improvement. It's not about closing. It's not like a policeman. It's continuous improvement. You sit down with the institution. You have shortcomings here. Can you do this, do that? You give them a week or so, they rectify, until you agree sometimes you give them 6 months to say, because certain things you cannot do them in 1 week. For example, if a computer laboratory is supposed to have 10 computers, and they have 5, you give them time to buy those 5, which they cannot do in 1 day. So accreditation process world over is about continuous improvement. You need continuously improve. If we go around closing everything, there will be no investing in this country.
I know I did ask you about your achievements, and I cut you short. I want you to look back. What have you achieved?
Yes. In terms of achievement, Grevazio, we have registered 60 universities, and most people get surprised. 60, that's too much. I will tell you that South Africa has 120 private universities. Now, our aim is not about the numbers. It's about quality in these universities. And that's what I'm talking about, continuous improvement. We should achieve quality in whatever these universities are doing. And some private universities are doing very well. I mean, we'll come to ZIALE. It's private students from private universities.
Big issue.
It's a big issue, yes. So, so it's about continuous improvement. And we have, I think we have achieved. We are, if you look at, because we are participating in a UNESCO program, 10 African universities who are doing quality assurance, 3 from Southern Africa, Zambia, Malawi, and Namibia. Others are from North Africa. When you look at what's happening here, it's the same issues in Africa. all this proliferation of private institutions, it's the same thing happening in Kenya, same thing happening in... So there is a movement in Africa on quality assurance in higher education institutions at the moment. And that's at UNESCO level. So when I compare with what others are doing in other African countries, that's why I'm very confident, Grevazio, that we are on course. Egypt started 10 years ago. They will tell you that they're not even halfway. Because when they started, there were already these guys operating, giving all sorts of degrees. So it's a movement, and I think we're doing well.
You hope you can achieve more. Now, as you go around registering, accrediting, and checking on these universities, what are you looking for?
Grevazio will look at, for example, there's a governance issue. Who is the vice chancellor? You know, the governance, what are the people in governance? The problem we are finding on governance, Grevazio, is that if you are a proprietor, you are invested, you want to be vice chancellor yourself, you want to be chairperson of the council, because a university must have a council. You also want to be chairperson of Senate. Your wife is the registrar, your daughter is the accountant, whatever. Those are the issues we are finding. And we're saying, no, there's an act here. You follow this. Bring in other people in these governance structures. So we look at governance, we look at infrastructure, we look at staff that are there, are they qualified? We also look at the safety of learners, environment, learner support, how are the learners going to be supported when they come here? So there's a whole lot of list. And then our experts go and check that. First you submit, we call it a portfolio. They do desk review. If you succeed, say, okay, everything is here, then they come to check. And depending on what they see, they will tell you, no, you are not ready. And now we are saying for you to start, you must have at least 3 programs for us to even register you as a university, which are ready to start. Because what used to happen is that someone who registers as a university, 1 year they're doing nothing. So now we have said, no, we need to link these two.
They don't have to wait for that long. Now,
yeah.
you said you don't have enough staff, meaning you've barely done any inspections in these universities. If you've not had these experts, you've not had the inspectors, meaning your inspections have basically been non-existent.
We have done some, but I will tell you that we haven't done well on that aspect, because, you know, 3 people, you have director general, you have a director and a manager. You know, so really we have done a few, but not much. We are intensifying that. We have 4 inspectors at the moment, and we have 3 senior officers, and already they have... What has happened, Grevazio, we went to Pakra, and we got a list of all those that have university in their name. We found 434.
Universities registered?
With Pakra. We have registered 60. So now, the first thing the inspectors are doing now is that, fine, where are these others? Where are they sitting? So that's part of inspection, which we wouldn't have done with the 3 of us. So, as I'm saying, going forward now, we shall intensify in our works, audits, and...
Well, even the number you have now doesn't look good enough.
Well, it's 13. Various departments in that department that does quality assurance. 4 are the ones that will just come today, let's go to that. No, those ones will be random inspectors, but there are these guys who will be doing other stuff. So with 15, I think 14, we think, of course, 3 to 14 is a big jump, and we think that in terms of intensifying the work, it will be seen.
There are some universities that are really doing scandalous things in terms of awarding of qualifications. The trainers are not qualified themselves. Mm-hmm. They are recruiting students that don't even have full grade 12 certificates.
Grevazio, that is the legacy that we found, and I would agree with you that it used to happen, where in some cases they even use mock examination results and say, no, you just come, when the results come, we continue. So in what we have started doing in our inspections, we even check that you should have a mechanism to verify the qualifications with the examinations council. And they must show us that they did, indeed they did verify with the examinations council of Zambia. So Grevazio, it's a process, but what you have said used to happen, and is something that we are working on. Once we accredit a program with experts, we are sure that this program is of good quality, the national standard.
What are the other challenges that you've been finding? You've been going around, I know.
Yeah.
What are the major issues that have been sticking out?
The main one, Grevazio, is that when you look at our act, it just talks about you come, you meet criteria, we register as a university. And we're saying we need to change that. Because being a university is not something that you play with. Because you must have proof that there's research culture, there's, the systems are available for being a university. So in terms of amendments, and this is something that the minister has also agreed, we are saying, look, when you first register, you must be a university college. You operate for at least 5 years. Because in that 5 years, you would have graduated someone, and that would be a measure also of your achievements. In that 5 years, you would have put systems in place, research systems in place. Then we can say, fine, I think you are now okay to be a university. So that act, there are those amendments that we are looking at. And of course, the issue of underqualified staff, we have found that has been happening. Some infrastructure, not very good. So there are a lot of issues that we are looking at and challenges. The other issue also is experts. We have 300 experts that we have in our database. But we found that certain programs, as a nation, we haven't done well. And examples are tourism. We don't find experts in tourism here. We have to get someone else. Performing arts, very few, if any. Journalism we have. But so those are some of the areas that we are saying, we opt to go out, especially in the region, to find experts to come and help us accredit these programs. So there are a few challenges, I think. But just one more, which is very critical, and this has been happening quite often, because we are getting these experts from various universities and industry. Grevazio is from University of Zambia. We send him to go and look at a program at CBU, for example. Now, instead of looking at this expert, they are looking at, when they look at you, they look at UNZA. So now if they arrive and say, no, we don't want this person from UNZA, can you get us another person from? So we've been trying to say, look, this one is an expert in this field. Don't look at the place where he's coming from. Do
you expect them to have an objective assessment?
Yes, and that's
if you get somebody from a rival university to assess another university, is there going to be an objective assessment?
Yes, these are experts, and when we arrange them, those are the things that we go through. And even when because we also check, we don't just leave them do on their own. We check what they are doing, and that's one of the things we emphasize. You are here as an expert. We even give them a contract which they sign, and there are certain do's and don'ts. I think so far it's been well. The only thing is that, of course, there are some rival universities, and if the report comes out negative, what you hear is that, no, because they are from that, those kind of things. But it's a new thing in this country, accreditation of programs. All of us are starting this, and there are these challenges that we are facing. And I think eventually people will see the importance of accrediting a learning program. You want someone else to assure the public that the programs that are running there, or the programs that are there, are of good quality.
And authentic. Now, but going by your act, you're supposed to publish an annual list of higher education institutions established under the act, and an annual report on the state of higher education in Zambia. Let's look at 2017. Did you do that?
We just published 2 weeks ago, the list. Ideally, we were supposed to do that first week or first quarter of the year. And so we did that for 2018. We did it, I think the second one, we did it last week. Yes, the state of higher education in Zambia, we haven't yet produced, and that's something that we are working on. for the reasons that I gave, that I think it's been a settling in and few staff and that kind of thing. But it's something that we're working on. Going into next year, first quarter, we should have those reports ready. I'll call you and I'll send a copy to you.
Now, when we talk about Higher Education Authority, with the coming of this authority, ideally people should have expected standards in the education sector, particularly in higher education, to start going up. But we still have statistics coming through that universities in Zambia are poorly ranked. None of them is ranked highly in Africa, not even among the top 10.
Yeah. You see, ranking is something else. You know, we are looking at programs. In ranking, there are several things that are looked at. Other ranking agencies will look at what is the uptake of ICT in a university, connectivity of internet, how is it connected? I was looking at some yesterday. Then they will rank a university based on that. Others will look at publications, what is coming out? They will rank university. There are several issues. Others will look at, resource materials, and then they rank universities according to. So that one has so many facets in it in terms of rankings, and it's really not specifically the programs that you are running, because these are undergraduate and postgraduate programs where you go in a class. But the outputs also affect the ranking of a university. So
when you look at these rankings, do you believe them?
Look, the academia is like a club. Eh? you want to show people that these universities are, these ones of good standing. It's a practice that is there, and for me, it's something that we should embrace, so that we also compete on the international stage.
Do you intend, as Higher Education Authority, to start ranking universities in Zambia? Internal ranking, so Zambians could know this is the top university, this is the university to go to.
Yes, now that we are settling, it's something that we will go into, and it's something that we have also put in our statutory instrument. Grevazio, it was difficult initially to start ranking. University just registers, comes in, no history of publications, no professors at that level, nothing. They're just starting with 1 or 2 programs. So we found it difficult. But now we have come up with a criteria that we shall use. And going into 2019, we shall have rankings. And we have come up with 4 rankings: Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 4, Tier 3, and Tier 4. And that's how we shall rank that institutions. Because when you're ranking, you look at in this university, how many professors they have, because that also matters. Publications, what is coming out of this institution? How many students they have? How many programs they have? Those kind of things. They also contribute to the ranking. So in our internal rankings, those are the things that we shall also do, linked to what international ranking organizations also use.
Now we've got this information coming through, not pleasant at all, that Zambian universities have been downgraded by Oxford University in terms of admitting students from Zambia. What is your comment on that?
First of all, there is no university on this earth that has the authority to downgrade another university, because we are all in the same field, if you like, the same league as academic institutions. I think, let me read something where this is stemming from. This is stemming from a Rhodes Scholarship, and it's written for Zambia, because each country, they will put up the criteria. Rhodes Scholarship to enter Oxford University, okay? And there are so many scholarships that you can use. There's also Commonwealth University, the Bed Trust, and so forth. But this is particularly Rhodes Scholarship. I'll read 1 or 2 issues. Okay, let me read something which says, the Rhodes Scholarship Program is the oldest and perhaps the most prestigious international scholarship program in the world, administered by Rhodes Trust in Oxford. The program offers more than 100 fully funded scholarships each year, 100 each year for the whole world. Okay, so very competitive. Now, further on eligibility, they are saying, one of the criteria are saying academic achievement. You must have completed or have completed in July 2019 an undergraduate degree from a college or university, normally bachelor's degree with distinction or merit or equivalent elsewhere, because this is for Zambia. Now they are saying you should have completed this elsewhere. He is saying, given the very intense international competition for places at Oxford University, candidates, with the exception of those studying medicine, because this is applied to Zambia, candidates, except for those studying medicine here, who have a greater chance of successful admission to Oxford if they have an honors degree or have taken an honors year from a university outside Zambia, or if they have studied to master's level within Zambia. So, two issues there. First is a Rhodes Scholarship to enter Oxford University. It's not an Oxford University scholarship, it's a Rhodes Scholarship. One, you must have honors degree, or you should have done master's level. Now, we don't, our qualifications in this country are not graded according to honors, and which is first class and second class, up and lower. We just say distinctions, merit, and whatever. Now, because there are 100 scholarships, they want to reduce competition. The easiest to do is that you must have honors degree, and they know that Zambia doesn't offer honors degrees. This is not downgrading, Grevazio.
So you're saying this is misinformation when people say Oxford has downgraded Zambia's universities?
It's misinformation. No one should downgrade another university, because they're just a university like us. Or is this a scholarship, which is saying, for me as a scholarship, for you to enter, this is what I'm looking for. To reduce the competition, they know that Zambia, our degrees, we don't grade them according to honors and whatever. We say distinctions, merit. Grevazio, this is like you having a scholarship for students to enter University of Zambia. You will say, me, I want someone who has an A-level. But you know that our education system, we don't reach A-level, although there are A-levels that are done privately, because you want to reduce competition. We have, for example, Commonwealth scholarships, which we advertised recently. I'll show you the advert. It's here somewhere. Anyway, in that scholarship, what is written there is, I found it, that
what is written is different from the one in the Rhodes.
Very different. I'll read to you. Hold a first degree, at least upper class, honors standards for masters, or second class degree and relevant postgraduate degree for PhD. So when our students go there, and by the way, last year we sent 21 students under Commonwealth scholarship, and they are in various universities in the UK. They just do an equivalent. You got this, what is the equivalent to honors? And then they enter. This year, the same scholarship has increased to 35. This is a Commonwealth scholarship. They are all entering universities in the UK. So this Rhodes one is specifically for Oxford. To reduce competition, they have said honors. So for me, what we should look at, and this is something I was discussing with the minister this morning, our grading system of our degrees, we must change to honors. Kenya has changed. Same period, 4 years. All they do is that, depending on what you get, maybe 70 to 100% is honors. 60 to 69 is second class. All those things. They just do change to the current thinking, because
to suit with the international standards.
That's it.
International accepted
the
standards.
period is the same. South Africa, you do 3 years ordinary degree, then you do another year, 4 years to do honors. All you are doing the honors degree is you do certain courses and a project at the end where you write a dissertation, which our students are doing in 4 years. So there's nothing different from what we are doing. We should just change the nomenclature so that we conform to international standard.
Let's look at one other controversial issue, and I'll come back to this ranking issue.
So in short, Grevazio, no one has downgraded our universities, because in the same advert, it's saying you should have done a master's within Zambia. So if you are a college, how can they again recognize the master's that you are doing in a college? So this is basically a scholarship specifically for entry into Oxford, and you can enter Oxford using any other means. Currently we have two. I was just talking to the Dean of Engineering this morning. There are 2 students doing engineering from Zambia at Oxford University. They went there using other means other than Rhodes Scholarship.
Let's look at one other controversial issue. I think it's been in the media for a while. ZIALE. We had 388 candidates and only 4 students passed.
Thank you.
That sounds more like a scandal than anything else.
Yeah. Thank you, Grevazio. We have been chatting or talking to the director there. She's trying very hard to change things. First, I'll give you background where we're coming from. Previously, we used to have about 20 or 15 students going to ZIALE. And when they are doing that, the program, they send them to law firms around Osaka as they are doing that program. Now we are having 388, as you just mentioned. I don't know how many law firms that we have in Osaka where these students can be attached, because they're supposed to be attached to a law firm. That's one problem. Secondly, these students that are going there, they have the ability to learn. They have already they have a degree from their respective universities. So we should look at what is happening in there, because you see, when you have these inputs, the students, lecturers, assessments, and everything, and then the output is not showing, then there's something happening. Because as a lecturer, and if you have students failing, then I should look at myself. What am I doing wrong that is affecting this result? So we have discussed with the director, and one thing is that these lecturers are part-time. They are not full-time. So of course, they will come and lecture today. Some of them are state councils, and of course, being a state council, Grevazio, or being a doctor or being an engineer does not mean that you can teach. Because teaching is something, you need to have some pedagogical skills on how to arrange a lesson, when do you give an assignment. Furthermore, you must be available for the students. You can have a class, someone did not maybe understand, you must be there so they can come and talk to you. But at ZIALE, I'm sure all those people are busy people. I think they are part-time, and of course, they may not have time to interact with students. Those are some of the issues, and one of them is the director has been looking at is to have at least some full-time members of staff who can be responsible, who can be there when students are having all these queries. So there are a lot of issues there that needs to be looked at. I don't believe that it's the students.
Has it got something to do with what is being pushed into ZIALE from the universities? Low caliber, quality graduates?
I'm not entirely convinced. Look at UNZA. To get into law school, it's very competitive, because the first year there must have at least B's and above for you to get in the School of Law. And these are brilliant students, and some of them had 6 points at grade 12 and so forth. They finish. Yes, maybe from other private universities they may not have been that competitive, but they have gone through a program in law, they have passed. And they are going there. That's what I'm saying. I believe that these are people, students, who are capable to learn. They have already learned and they have passed. So there may be a few issues there in terms of caliber, but I think we should also concentrate on what has happened, what has changed at ZIALE, that we're having this situation. I think last year we had more.
In terms of numbers, yes.
Yeah. So what happened this year? So all these things we should interrogate and find solutions.
So ZIALE doesn't fall under you, but you still are talking.
Yeah, we work together in terms of accreditation. I sit on the accreditation committee, and we also use them as we accredit law programs. So we interact, and these are some of the challenges that we have talked about. Of course, you know, they need resources, because to recruit someone full time, you know, these are lawyers. You know, are you going to pay them? You know, so those are some of the issues that. So we need to look at what's happening. Are there other delivery modes that we can look at now that the numbers are increasing? 388. How do you handle that number? Is it the same way we're handling when we had 15 students? Those are some of the issues that we need to interrogate to make sure that we improve on the performance at ZIALE.
Here's another question. What can Zambian universities do to get into the rankings, international rankings?
Yeah, international rankings.
They may dispute them, yes, but eventually people will look to these things and assess universities based on the rankings that are published internationally.
Yeah. As I said, we can't dispute. Okay, what we are disputing is this downgrading, which does not exist. But international rankings are very important, and as universities, we should embrace them. We look at what are the requirements, because we are competing in the international higher education ecosystem. So if it's publications, we need to look at our research. What are we doing with the research? E-resources, our libraries, are they equipped? Are we, you know, those kind of things. Even the universities themselves, the atmosphere. So there are various things that are looked at when you are ranking universities. Even the number of professors, I mean, we have. It's not just waking up and become professor. And by the way, that's one area that we need to look at also. We have so many self-proclaimed professors. We are coming up with a regulation on how professors should be promoted, what they should look at, so that we also control the proliferation of professors.
And proliferation of doctors?
Yeah, okay. Doctors also, there is what is called honorary doctorate. When you are honored, Grevazio as an honorary doctor, you're not supposed to use the word Dr. Grevazio Zulu. You're supposed to use Grevazio Zulu. Then at the end, you put honors, is H, you know, you're honored. By the way, we're not supposed to use it indiscriminately. You're supposed to use it when you go to that particular university that gave you, not anyhow. You know Mandela.
But we have a lot of people that have been honored with honorary doctorates, and they use them.
They're not supposed to use them. In fact, the media also promotes that. They are not supposed to use that. And I think the Zambia Qualification Authority explained that in detail. Mandela, for example, had around about 7. Obama, so many. They're not using them. Even Mugabe has so many doctorates. He doesn't do Dr. Mugabe and things like that. They are honors. You've been honored. Maybe you've been keeping chickens so well for 20 years, they give you an honorary doctorate. Why should you be using it? It's an honor.
Now let's look at one innovation that has been in the media recently. The Loans and Scholarship Boards intends to extend loans to students in private institutions. How will this impact the private sector?
Yeah, thank you, Grevazio. I think that thought is good to implement, because then you have the same playing field. It also impacts the private sector in terms of you know, having sponsored students, and also for us, we are looking at it as a way of also increasing compliance, because for students to get those loans, they will need to show that they are coming from a university that is registered. They are going to do a program that is accredited. So for these universities to accredit, to access those loans, they should make sure that they are in good standing. So it's win-win situation. But what that means also for the public sector is that if the funding remains the same for loans, we will see a reduction in terms of how many are being sponsored in the traditional universities that access loans, because we need to I spread the cake to others.
Now, you're a principal advisor, in short, to the Minister of Education on all matters related to higher education. What are some of the key issues that you've been discussing recently?
Yeah, I think one of them is the one I just mentioned, professorship. We have basically agreed that we need to guide the sector in terms of how they should promote people.
Are you going to revoke if you find that someone do not really meet the grade that you anticipate or the standards that you set?
Of course. I mean, what we want to do is that once we come up with that, we are going to ask them to say, can you show us how, first, how many professors you have, how they were promoted, show us minutes in terms of, you know, so that because if you don't recognize them, it will impact on the rankings that we shall start doing, because we need to know how many professors are there. So those are things that we shall so it will have an impact on the assessments and rankings. That's one of them. We've also been talking about this same thing of honors degree, to say, look, we should make sure that our universities start grading their qualification in terms of honors and things, so that we are, you know, we are doing current practice as it is, so that everybody, you know, we conform to what's happening. Otherwise, these kind of things will continue. People will look at what's not happening in Zambia. They are not doing honors. Okay, let's put it as a condition so that you are eliminated. So that is one of them that we need to do. So there are several things that we have. Some of them are ad hoc. You know, you are called, what about this? And you advise the minister.
Let's look at what you're promising the people now as we close the interview. The numbers seem to be low in a lot of areas where you're assuring quality. I mean, accreditation of programs, inspection of universities. Where do we see you in the next 1 year?
Yeah.
What do we anticipate?
Thank you, Grevazio. We just finished drafting a strategic plan. And that plan, the minister will launch it soon. It gives us a roadmap on how we are going to operate in the next 3 years. We're supposed to be linked to the electoral cycle. And in there are various interventions that we have come up with. And one of them, of course, staffing. And also, how do we deliver service delivery? How do we improve service delivery to the clients? So I think in the next 3 years, you will see, you are talking about 1 year. 1 year, I think, is okay. You'll see a lot of improvement. And in fact, next week, we are sitting down with staff so that we go through the performance appraisal system so that we come up with the work plans for next year, so that everybody is tuned to work. When they come for work, they know what they're supposed to be doing. So we see an improvement in what we do. We see an improvement in accreditation. We see an improvement in inspections, and I think we shall be visible going into 2019.
Now, you spoke about over 400 universities registered, although some are not 434, although some are not accredited. Now let's look at the number of
they're not registered, by the way.
With PACRA, not accredited.
They are registered with PACRA. They are companies. That's like you can create a company tomorrow at Grevazio University.
But they're not recognized as training institutions. But
right.
we're looking at the number of trained staff. Do we have enough qualified lecturers that can fit in all these universities?
Grevazio,
isn't that a huge challenge the nation is facing now?
It's a huge challenge. That's why what's happening now, and that's what we have seen, you notice that a university will have a few full-time staff and they are depending more on part-time. We are calling for a mix. You can still have part-time staff, but you must have your own staff, because you cannot run a university based on part-time staff, which means you don't own the process. So that, of course, has an impact on quality, because if I teach in the morning at UNZA, then afternoon I'm at Grevazio University, maybe evening I'm at somewhere, where am I going to find time to do research? The students where I'm employed, the students are supposed to have access to me if there are any questions they want to come and discuss in my office. There's no time. So of course that will impact on the quality that we are churning out. So we used to have a very good staff development program at the University of Zambia, where the university itself was training people for masters and preparing them to be lecturers. The private sector is not doing that. I think they're depending on someone else has trained, and then they're trying to attract that.
They're a business.
They're a
to
business.
weigh their bottom lines and
the
profits.
That's right. The thing we're discussing with the minister is that, look, in our loans and scholarships, we should also introduce a portion for training at postgraduate level.
Staff development.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, Grevazio, these are the people who will be teaching these universities. Graduates will be coming out. These are the ones that will be running the country. So we cannot just say, no, that's private. We also need to be concerned to say, look, let's contribute to training of staff so that they go and teach in these private universities. Professor
Simukanga, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very much, Grevazio.
You've been watching Sunday Interview. Our guest this evening, Professor Stephen Simukanga, Director General for the Higher Education Authority. Till next week sometime, pleasant viewing.